Hey y'all, and welcome back to What the Hype. This is going to be our second water cooler edition where we do reactions to recently released episodes of shows that we're all following. This one is Bridgerton themed, dearest gentle reader, and I have Pam with me here today. We're going to react to the season 3.5 episode drop. I know that we were all waiting anxiously because I think if you were a book reader, which I'm not, but I know from following book readers, people knew what was coming. There were some pretty steamy scenes that people were looking forward to. But this second half of the season, I felt like was even juicier in some ways than I've seen Bridgerton be before, which is saying something. Pam, you are our resident Bridgerton expert, so I want to hear first your reaction overall to these last few episodes.
For sure. So do you mean juicy, like in the sense of like how much plot we had to cover?
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree as well. And I know that there is some mixed feelings about like whether or not it like the steaminess lived up to the hype, and I'm sure we'll get to that eventually, because I feel like for some people it's like more is always better, and then for other people it's like less is more. So anyway, but yeah, like honestly, and I know that we didn't get a chance, you and I, to talk about the first half because you hadn't caught up yet by the time we released our first episode. But I was stressing. I'm not going to lie. Like as soon as they cut it where they did for part one, I was stressed. And it was because they deviated from the book. And I just kind of felt like the whole Lady Whistledown secret was going to be too much ground to cover. And like with Bridgerton, you know that the couple is always going to get a happy ending. And that's really nice going into it. But you also want to be left satisfied with the way that you leave them. And so that was my concern, was that we were going to have like too much going on with the Whistledown reveal, that we wouldn't get like enough of like the honeymoon happy ending bliss that you kind of like are craving by the time you get through that story. But yeah, there is so many moving parts in this back half.
And with that in mind, let me ask you a question, because again, I haven't read the books, but you've read this one.
Just Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, yes. That's like the extent of my book knowledge for the most part.
So my understanding is that in the books, Colin already knew she was Whistledown, and this whole plot point of him not finding out until, you know, they're betrothed and they've already been intimate and stuff is different. Is that right?
It is. Yeah. So they moved up the carriage scene and they moved back the Whistledown reveal. So in the books, the Whistledown reveal is the precursor to the carriage scene. So by the time he gets off the carriage, and he does deliver the same line that we get in the show, which is, "For God's sake, Penelope Featherington, are you going to marry me or not?" He already knows that she's Whistledown. So that was why I was stressed, because, you know, Colin is a sensitive boy and it's a big secret to keep when you feel like you're like, he's basically falling in love with the person that sees him for who he is more than anybody else in the world. And he does the same for her. And it's such a beautiful love story, but you have this big secret hanging over them. And it really sucks in a way, because she knows that he doesn't love every part of her yet. And when he finds out, he feels like blindsided because he thought he really knew her. And there's so many mixed emotions there. So I don't know, like, how did you feel, like, as somebody who is newer to the fandom and who doesn't have like maybe like the context of the book like I do? How did you feel about the way they went about showcasing that? Like, did it feel satisfying to you? Do you feel like there were like points missing that you wish we had gotten more of?
Honestly, you know, it felt that aspect of the story and the development felt kind of rushed to me because Colin went from being staunchly like I'm a man of honor and you and I already shaboinked, so like I'm gonna marry you, but this ain't gonna be your mother's marriage, that's for sure. Or excuse me, not your mother's marriage, my mother's marriage. And he kind of he got over it pretty quickly for how upset he was. And I understand it was because of her grand proclamation at the end in front of the queen and all of the ton that really like pushed him over the edge. But I was a little bummed throughout that whole arc watching Penelope grapple with like, do I give up the man that I love or do I give up Whistledown? And seeing Eloise try to push her towards giving up Whistledown as well was kind of a bummer. Honestly, Eloise, I thought was being such a douche this entire time. And I was
Yeah.
like, what is your like I get that you're feeling left behind because this society sucks and you're a woman ahead of your time and you're watching everyone get paired off and like, you know, resume their lives of dressing up and going to balls and promenading, and that's not what you want to do, and that's fine, but like stop being a douche. Like she was a bad friend, not just to Penelope but also to Cressida. So I have major beef with Eloise, which makes me very sad because I do love her.
I
And
know.
I hope she gets better when she goes to Scotland with Francesca, because I'm like, girl, you got to get out of the ton. Like you're like a big fish in a small pond and it's got to end. But all of that is to say, I found myself being a lot more interested in the story that was happening around Penelope and Colin's drama and like how Eloise was inserting herself in that drama as well. I was a lot more interested to see Francesca's story unfolding, watching Violet's story unfold even more, learning more about her friendship and the deep bond that she has with Lady Danbury, even though there are complicated aspects to that relationship as well. I just felt like I cared more about those elements of the story than I did about the arc with
Mhm.
Penelope and Colin. And it kind of breaks my heart to say because I love the two of them together. They have such amazing chemistry between them. And honestly, I felt pretty satisfied by the steamy scenes. I thought they were really tastefully done, and you can feel again the chemistry between the two of them. It's palpable. I felt like the way that particular arc of the story was portrayed wasn't really to my liking. How did you feel?
Yeah. No, I felt the same way. I feel like there was, again, to your point about how juicy the story was in terms of just the plot points that we had to work through. I think that they came at the expense of Colin and Penelope. I think that if they would have cut back a little bit more on some of the B plots and even given us like two or three more scenes, I think that they relied too much on like trying to show us and not tell us. But in the case of these two, I think that you really needed to see them tell us. Specifically him, you needed a moment where he told the audience, because I think that a lot of Colin's character too is so like misconstrued as well amongst viewers, because he's kind of like, I don't know, like he's supposed to be kind of icky at the beginning, but then you have to keep in mind that that's like a facade and a persona he puts on. He's a very complex character, and they did such a good job like peeling back the layers. But then with like this 180 that they do in the back half of the season, and because they did all that groundwork of trying to show that he's kind of really grappling with like internalizing his purpose, I think that you really needed to see him say like, hey, I still love you. I need a minute.
Yeah.
Or, I need to, I don't know. Like, I feel like they gave a lot of that to Eloise because in a lot of ways they're both kind of jealous, but for different reasons
Mm-hmm.
of Penelope and her success. So yeah, but I did like the subplot of Violet and Marcus. I think they're very sweet
Yeah.
together. I really like the way that this show lets female friendships breathe too. And the fact that Violet is interested, but she wants to make sure that like things are resolved so that she doesn't lose the special friendship she has with Agatha. I think that is really amazing. And even like the for as selfish as she comes off this season, even the resolution between Eloise and Penelope is so beautiful. And just
Yeah.
like the parallels between the way that we like leave them and how we initially were introduced to them is so cute. Like the way they just like go back to gossiping on the sofa, all slouched down, is just so sweet.
Yeah.
So you can tell that there's a lot of love there. And I think that's really beautiful.
Canonically, how old are these characters?
So that's the other thing. You have to just keep in
Okay.
mind that they're still pretty young.
Yeah.
So Penelope is like 20, and Eloise
Yeah.
must be about the same age. And Colin
Okay.
is 23 in the
Yeah.
show. In the books, they're older.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is
In the
it not as
books,
big of a deal to enter society late in the
no,
books?
in the books, she's dead ass a spinster.
Oh.
So in the books, she's 27 and
Oh,
he's
man.
like
Getting long in the
33.
tooth right there.
Exact. I know, right? Well past her prime, as you and I would have been.
Right. Well,
So
just look no further than Don Lemon to tell you when a woman is past her
I
prime.
know, that's so true. But yeah, so in the books, she's 27. And so because like it's been like 10 years since she debuted and she still hasn't gotten married, she's like, I'm not getting married anymore. There's no Lord Debling subplot. It's just Colin coming back, not understanding why she stopped writing, and then her being like, I'm a spinster. You don't have to try so hard anymore. Like, you're free of your duties. And he's like, you're not a spinster, you know? So it's like a completely different um, relationship for them. And I think that that's why maybe the characters behave differently as well, or why they felt the need to change up the way they kind of behave in the context of the show. Because you would behave differently, you know, in your early 20s versus your
Yeah.
late 20s. So
Yeah, definitely. And Colin just gets the freedom to, be, what would they call him? A rake. Like, he
yeah,
has that freedom to go out and explore the world, and Penelope really doesn't.
I think it's so interesting to me that like, well, I'm biased, but I really do think he's like the best of the three brothers, and it's specifically because he doesn't even really want to be a rake. He just does it because he feels like he needs to. And going back to the beginning of the season, I just think that it's like, it's so telling, and it's really sad that, you know, this is the third time he's gone away traveling and this is the only time people care, and it's only because he comes back talking about his sexcapades. And it's something
Yeah.
that he feels like he needs to do in order to be accepted in society, because he's just following suit with what his brothers do, and they're both super slutty, or
Yeah.
Anthony was before he settled down. But like, he had no interest in doing any of that, and the proof is in season 1 with Marina. Like, Marina's literally like, oh, we can kiss, and he's like, no, I can't do that, I'm a gentleman.
Right. Well, speaking of Anthony, I'm so glad you brought him up, because I don't think I've gotten to tell you this yet, or if I have, it's been in passing. Uh, I hate Anthony and Kate as
Ooh, tell me
characters,
more.
as a couple. They suck. They're awful people. They're awful people. And then they come strolling back into this season, all lovey dovey and having this wonderful love story. And yeah, she has her acknowledgement that it took us a long time to get here, but we didn't really get to see any of that. We just got to see the two of them treat her little sister horribly. And when we had the whole sequence where they were giving Colin marital advice the night before his wedding, I was like, please, not these two.
Yeah, like, people love Anthony and they love season 2. And I think that is just because Enemies to Lovers is having a moment right now. I think we've talked about this before, but I don't know if people know this about us. We're not enemies to lovers people. That's not our favorite trope.
No.
So I think that it makes
it.
sense. Yeah, no hate if you like it. But I think that is something to like keep in mind when you're talking to your friends or other people about Bridgerton, is that it's like, different strokes for different folks. And so if you like season 2, there's probably a reason, and people that don't, there's probably a reason.
But what else stuck out to you about season 3? I know we've had a little moment where we've had our criticisms of it, but is there anything about the season, particularly focusing on the second half, that stuck out to you that you really liked?
I actually really did like, I mean, this is going back to like the romance plot. I did actually really think that like some of the romantic scenes were quite beautiful. The wedding, specifically the dance sequence to Taylor Swift's You Belong With Me. That one moment where they're dancing and then like everybody else in the room just disappears was like so beautiful. And it definitely like, it hit me in my emotions, because I think that's such a beautiful way to showcase love.
Yeah.
And just like really driving home that point that like sometimes, like it's like that's the only person in the room because that's the only person that you see or that you're drawn to. And yeah, that was really sweet. I also really liked Colin standing up to Portia. That's a moment from the books too. They kind of did it a little bit differently, but I like feel like we as an audience really needed to see that, even if you didn't know that it might be something that was coming. Yeah. And I think that was so satisfying. And it's nice that they like use that as an opportunity for Portia to turn over a new leaf. And by the end of the back half of the season, you realize that it's not just because she wants good standing with her in-laws. It's really because she's realized that she should have been a better mother. So I think it was, again, like that's one of those things that I feel like they sucked up a lot of the airtime that we had left to extrapolate that story. And I wish like we would have had more time to have that and then also have other stuff, but it was still a nice moment.
Yeah. Do you think that it also sucked up a lot of air in the room that we got Francesca's story in the same season?
I was actually surprised they did that, because I mean, like I wasn't surprised they brought Francesca back, because she does have to come back at some point. I was just kind of surprised that they really kind of went all in and had a double wedding.
Yeah.
This season.
I mean, doesn't each of the Bridgerton children get their own book?
Yeah, they do. And I've never, like I said, I've never read the other ones. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's like the fourth book is not used in a way to, from what I could see, set up another couple, and if there's some context clues there that I just don't get because I haven't read past that book or before that book, then that's on me. But it's pretty staunchly rooted in the two of them.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it. If maybe the book didn't do a setup for another couple, can we talk about what the show did? Because I feel like it threw multiple possibilities out there potentially about who's going to be the focus of the next season.
Yeah. So obviously Francesca's on her way to Scotland with Eloise, and they introduced this character, which is a cousin, right, of John's, this Michaela Sterling. This is a gender bend for them. Yeah. So in the books, it's Michael Sterling. And that actually makes sense in the context of some of the press interviews that were happening when they were doing the big press tour, because Luke and Nicola were teasing, that everybody in the cast was wanting to see, like, it was nice that the show has had such good representation that it makes so many different people feel seen, but that they would like to see more queer rep on the show. So I feel like they were kind of teeing everybody up to be open-minded to that. And I thought that was like well played on the press team's part to make sure that they told them they could slip that in.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I didn't I didn't see it coming. I really took Francesca just for her word that, like, hey, mom, just because my love story doesn't look like yours doesn't mean it's not real. And then you see her face when Michaela walks up, and it was like, oh, heavy handed hint. And they're all going up to Scotland together to live in a castle. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen up there? I wonder.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I kind of do feel bad for John. That's his first name, John, right?
Yeah.
Because they are like very sweet together, but you can definitely tell that like her meeting Michaela, like that is a thunderbolt from the sky for her,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
For sure.
And then there are other also people that are thinking that Benedict is finally going to get his season,
Mm-hmm.
and it's specifically because he says that I think he tells Eloise that their mother won't let them miss the masquerade ball, like one or the other, and the masquerade
Yeah.
ball is the catalyst for the beginning of his story.
So do we think they're going to do another duel
Mm,
season? Does it seem like they're setting that up?
it kind of feels like that to me, although that would be a huge undertaking for them if they base half the season in Scotland. That's like a very confined
Yeah.
set, basically, unless they expand on that world, which they could do. Right now, their showrunner is saying that it's going to be 2 years before season 4, which seems crazy, but
Wow.
maybe they need that time to kind of figure out how they're going to play it since they've now separated these two main players that could be, you know, having the spotlight next. So,
Yeah. And also just makes me wonder what's going to happen with Eloise. Like, is taking her out of the ton and putting her in this new environment going to introduce her story? Like, I don't know anything
mm,
about the source material. So I'm wondering, like, does she meet some like strapping young Scotsman and that becomes her story?
could be, could be. She's also like one of the last to get married in the books, from what I know. So, like, her and Penelope are kind of like in it together with the spinster situation, but for different reasons, right? Like, Eloise doesn't want marriage, and Penelope is too scared to tell Eloise that she actually does. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
All
I'll be
right.
interested to see what they do with her. And I do think that, like, probably sending her to Scotland is smart because she'll settle as a character a little bit more.
Yeah. I need that to happen for her because, again, I have loved her until season 3. And I'm like, you reverted and became so teenage, literally giving the ultimatum of you need to tell him by midnight or I will. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
I couldn't believe that she like hijacked the wedding toast
Yeah.
too.
You're just making it about yourself at that point. It just
I
feels so
know.
out of character, to be completely honest.
I would also argue too that like I feel like people are really hard on Penelope for the Lady Whistledown thing. And I think that there's
Yeah.
like a number of reasons for that. Like, first and foremost, I think a lot of it is like misplaced anger towards the actress because of internalized fat phobia. But like
Oh,
that's a bigger
yeah.
conversation for another time. I think the difference is that Penelope feels remorse for the things that she wrote when she was a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
She has the hindsight even 3 years later to understand that she hasn't always been responsible.
I mean, again, Penelope's just, she is the mirror to the Ton.
Yeah.
Like, she is just
And she's
showing
only
them who
telling the
they are.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to get more into that conversation when we do
I
our deep dive
know.
season 3
I know.
recap.
Me too. Should we like end on a high note? Should we talk about the mirror scene?
Yes. I was hoping that we would. How do you rate it?
Okay, so I had to watch it a few times to really digest it because I did have like some small issues with it, but it's like it's nitpicking. I think overall, actually, the it's actually a really beautiful scene, and I honestly wish that they had like it had been longer. Not necessarily like the actual sex, but I think it would have been nice to have seen the actual mirror scene drawn out a bit more, and I wouldn't have been mad at like more of like the afterglow, having more of the afterglow, because I think that like where Colin and Penelope really shine is like in the aftermath, and the fact that like at the end of the day they can just like exist and
Yeah.
laugh together about anything, and I think that that's really sweet.
Yeah, I did. I mean, overall, I really did like it as well. I did feel like I could tell that they really condensed it from what was in the source material, just because I've heard so many people talk about this mirror scene and
Hmm.
wax poetic about it.
Okay,
I,
wait, but
yeah.
there's
Okay.
actually no mirror scene in the book.
What? Then what are
Yeah.
people talking about?
When they're having sex for the first time, Colin is running his mouth, like just, about how hot it is that they're finally doing it. And he just says that he wants to do it in front of a mirror.
Oh, but it
And
doesn't
that's the
actually
one
happen.
line. No, that's like the one line that everybody is like clinging to, is that he says that, and then Penelope goes, now, and he's like, no, not now. And then they
Oh
just
my
move
gosh.
on.
He's like, I'm
So
too busy.
it's all just like wish fulfillment. He's like, I've got a plan for us tonight, and it does not include that.
Okay.
So I just think that it is really funny that like it's been talked about so much that people that don't have context from the book actually think it's a scene from the book.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought
Yeah.
based on the way people were doing it. And I definitely saw some TikToks where people had taken like excerpts of
Mm-hmm.
lines that were delivered in the book, but they were portraying it as though those lines happened during the mirror scene. And I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds so steamy.
Yeah. I thought they were actually gonna like, do some like artful shots of like the actual sex from the mirror, but I think it was way more, what's the word I'm looking for? I think it was way more intimate doing it the way they did it, which is just
Yeah.
him like affirming her that she is like, he loves her for a multitude of reasons, not just because he thinks that she's beautiful, but also because of that.
No, I
Mm-hmm.
think overall, I agree with you. I think that
Mm-hmm.
scene landed for the most part. I
Yeah.
do agree that like the actual sex felt short, and it felt like it wasn't supposed to feel short. Like it
Yeah,
was
I think
definitely
they cut
supposed to
some of it.
feel it was supposed to feel like it was a sesh, you know?
Yeah,
Um
well, okay, and to that point, every other couple gets a montage.
yeah, I know. I was like,
Yeah.
where is theirs?
Yeah, it's
Why
like
don't they get one?
Netflix, drop the unedited version, drop the pollen cut.
For real.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Is it
I will also say, like, as an aside, one of the things that I've really enjoyed most about existing on the internet since the season dropped is seeing how many women felt seen just
yeah,
because Nicola Coughlan decided that she was comfortable going nude for that. And she's like stunning.
I
But
know.
yeah, and it is like really refreshing to see somebody with her body type on screen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know I definitely felt seen.
Me
Um,
too.
but I don't know, like the fact that we didn't, and I mean, this isn't to sit here and say like maybe she didn't want to do more than that. Maybe that was all her call with the intimacy coordinator, that like maybe she didn't want a montage. But I don't know, there's part of me that's like, did the producers just think that the world couldn't handle seeing just very voluptuous, beautiful breasts like that multiple times?
I was kind of wondering about that too, because like, and again, like, it's fine if that was her decision. She was like,
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with the flash, and then I would like to cover up, that would be fine with me. But if it was because they were just like, that's enough from you, that would piss me off.
Yeah.
I was
Same.
looking respectfully, Laura,
Yeah, of
and I would have liked
course.
to keep looking respectfully.
Yeah, no, it was funny because Mark came in to the room after I had watched that, and he was asking me how it was going. And I was like, I had shared with him the quote that you actually shared with me of her at a press junket, where she basically told this male reporter, I'm a member of the Perfect Breast Club, and I hope you enjoy seeing them. And I was like, she wasn't kidding.
Yeah.
Girl ain't kidding. She is
No,
blessed.
she
And
is
I'm so happy
blessed.
for her.
Me too. I'm happy for all of us in the big breast community, but I'm especially
Yes.
happy for her. Yeah.
Yeah, we are going to be doing a deeper dive episode coming up very soon. We'll have that in video format here on the channel, but you can also get it through the MuggleCast feed, also the WTF What the Hype feed for anything that might be deemed a little too spicy to go up on the family-friendly
And there
feed.
might be
So,
some extra spicy content because it's Bridgerton. So you never
yeah.
know what we'll talk about.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the threesomes on this
That's right.
reaction.
Honestly, it's because
So
I'll save that for the episode.
So yeah, way more spice coming your way. Also be sure to check out mine, Andrew's, and Eric's water cooler reaction to the first 3 episodes of season 4 of The Boys. That is out right now as well. But Pam, thank you so much for joining me to do this today. Again, you're the North Star when it comes to Bridgerton expertise. I couldn't have done this without you. So
Oh,
I
I
really
tried. Thank
appreciate you
you.
being down.
Yeah, this was so much fun. And I'm really glad that we were able to just kind of come on here and give our initial reactions. And I'll be excited to see if we have a change of heart on anything by the time we
Maybe.
record in a few days. Because I do kind of think that sometimes when you let things sit, your opinion changes. So
I agree.
that's another fun part about getting to do these little water cooler chats.
Yeah. Well, I'm also going to do some rewatching before we have our deep dive. For no particular reason.
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever. All right. Well, thanks y'all so much. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.